Hello and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for attending our post-secondary transition networking community of practice. Today we have a pretty loaded agenda time-wise with Graham Wood and Travis Taylor from the Department of Education. They are going to be presenting on graduation updates and requirements. And then after that, we will have a quick transition to Renee Buchele from OOD is going to just run through some basic information about their services, making referrals, and answering questions there. We should have some built-in time for questions and answering. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Graham and let him and Travis introduce themselves and their office and what they do, and we will get moving. If you have questions, please, I don't know how Graham and Travis want to address them, wait till the end, but they'll go through all that, and I will also be helping to manage the chat box. We are recording the session today, so it will be available. And there's also information available in the Google folder, which I will place the link in the chat box to you for you as well. So it's all yours, Graham and Travis. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity to join you today. My name is Graham Wood. I am the Graduation in College and High School Administrator at the Ohio Department of Education, and Travis and I work in the Office of Graduate Success. Our office is newly formed within the last 6 months or so, and really pushes for students to have the opportunity to transition from high school into whatever's next. So hopefully all of you are familiar with the one goal in our strategic plan that we're annually increasing the number of students who are graduating from high school and also transitioning into something else. And that is kind of at the heart of what our office is working towards. So working on those connections to post-secondary institutions, to careers, to the military, different things like that. So that's me. Travis, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yes, thank you, Graham. Travis Taylor. As Graham mentioned, also working in the Office of Graduate Success, program administrator in our office. Began working at ODE around 7 months ago from now with a heavy focus on graduation requirements. Look forward to the presentation today. Graham and we like to tag team the presentation back and forth. He will be sharing the screen. Him and I will take a couple different sections throughout, but please do not hesitate to put a question in the chat box. We're big on being flexible with their presentation to ensure that we have time to answer questions. If you have a question and you want to unmute, we do at times stop in the middle of the presentation to allow for that, but we'll also allow for time at the end of the presentation as well too to answer questions. But please, if I'm presenting, Graham will be looking at and monitoring the chat, and if Graham's presenting, I'll be monitoring the chat as well too. So please do not hesitate and hold back. Ask us any questions that you have, and we'll try to work towards that. One note I will make mention, Graham and I are both a little bit under the weather. So if you see us cough or sneeze, or if our energy just doesn't seem like it's quite there, please don't hold it against us. It's nothing against the group that we're presenting with today. We're both just not feeling very well. So we'll make it through. Again, look forward to connecting through our presentation. Also want to know as well too, my 2-year-old daughter's home. So if you hear a baby crying in the background, she's okay. Just wanted to make note that's what you would be hearing. So, but yes, our presentation today, we're going to start off. We want to go through the overview of it. But at the meantime, if you're able to put in the chat your name, what school you're from, or what area or school district, then as well as to what you're hoping to get out of the presentation, or if you have any questions, or kind of give Graham and I a framework when we work through our presentation. But the first thing will be the House Bill 110 updates that came through this summer. Graham will provide an overview of what those updates are. We also reference them throughout the presentation. So when you see a yellow highlight or sentence or an area that is highlighted yellow, that references back to the House Bill 110 updates that Graham will kick us off with. Also, there's grad plans throughout the presentation. You'll see those little sections and Excel charts throughout. That's what those references, grad plans of our 3 students that we'll walk through as well. But you'll also notice on some slides, there will be graduation seals. Those are just to reference meeting that requirement will also earn that student the seal. So just some housekeeping notes, just kind of understand what the presentations, and we'll call it out when we get to the slide, but just want to make note of that. We're talking about current graduation requirements briefly for the school year, but a majority of our presentation is going to be focusing on the long-term Ohio high school graduation. So the class of 2023 and beyond, what those requirements are, course requirements, competency. Graham's going to go in depth regarding the competency and alternative pathways to demonstrate competency. Then I'm going to finish this up with readiness, talking about the seals. Then at the end, we'll answer any questions. So next slide we'll be diving into will be the House Bill 110 updates that Graham's going to talk about.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify before I dig into these slides, these are just updates. So you'll see exactly where these fit contextually within the graduation requirements in a little bit. So don't take these at face value as the only options available to students. These are just updated bits from House Bill 110, which was our budget this summer. So a lot of things that are very specific to students with disabilities. One is the alternate assessment. The alternate assessment now shows up in many areas throughout graduation requirements, both in competency and seals. So students can use their alternate assessment score to meet competency. You may have seen some information floating around from us around some specific scores around that. We did hear from folks that we may end up needing to do a little bit more work on that score setting. So just to let you know, we're kind of pulling back any communication about the scores needed for competency or to earn the citizenship or the science seal for the alternate assessment. So just a note on that. For our alternative demonstrations of competency, we had a brand new one added. That's a remediation-free score on the ACT or SAT. And that's specific to the subject area in which the student didn't get their 684 competency score or their required score on the alternate assessment. We had some clarification on our career-focused competency alternatives. A cumulative score proficient or higher on 3 or more web exams will meet that. Previously, it wasn't specifically cumulative. And any of you that work with career technical education on a regular basis will know that the way those web exams, which are career tech assessments, work is that students get what's called a pathway score for those, and they're looked at in full, not just looked at as like individualized scores. So that was a piece that was clarified there, is that it's cumulative. Any apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships used as a part of the foundational option need to be registered with the Ohio State Apprenticeship Council. So that's usually how it was functioning before, but it was just clarified in law. And we also added the option, there was also added the option of obtaining a state issued license. So these are usually also on our industry credential list, but there was an additional foundational option. So that is now our 4th foundational option, and you'll see where that fits in a little later on. And it'll, things will still sit on the industry credential list. Students will also be able to earn, this separate state issued license demonstration. Students transferring. So if a student transfers into a public and a chartered non-public school, if they are transferring their 12th grade year and they fail to attain a competency score in Algebra 1 or ELA 2, they're exempt from having to retake the exam prior to using an alternative demonstration. So for any other student, they would need to take those exams. If they don't score competent, they would need to receive remediation and then retake the exam. These students would not need to receive remediation and retake the exam before they would access those alternative demonstrations of competency. And then students with IEPs and graduation, this really is in reference to the excusal from the consequences of assessment. That excusal now applies to competency, but would not apply to seals. And students access that excusal in the same way that they would access one of the alternative demonstrations of competency. So they would need to take the assessment. If they don't score competent, they would need to receive remediation in that subject and then retake the assessment or assessments before they would have access to that excusal applying to their diploma. They would still need to earn 2 seals as well. And some updates to those seals. To earn the to earn the citizenship and the science seal, students can now use a B or higher in relevant high school coursework. So for the citizenship seal, that's American history and government. For the science seal, it's specifically a B or higher in an advanced science course. So advanced science there, not biology. An advanced science course, our understanding is that that's content that goes beyond the biology and physical science standards, and it's typically at least junior level content. So students may take it earlier than junior year, but it's kind of goes beyond those first 2 science courses. Students can also use the alternate assessment, both the social studies and the science alternate assessment, to earn these seals. That required score is still being determined as well. For the industry recognized credential seal, that same state issued license that you saw earlier was added here as an option for students. Students can use that state issued license to earn that seal. And they also have the opportunity for their locally designed seals to transfer and receive proportional credit. So if a student's transferring from one district to another in Ohio and already has credit working toward one of those local seals, schools now need to have guidelines as to how students are going to receive proportional credit for the work that they were doing in the previous district. And just a note on transfer students, this is not specifically anything new, but just thinking about how competency and seals apply to them. Algebra 1 and ELA 2 are now the required assessments for any student meeting the long-term graduation requirement. So this is, a difference from the required scores in the prorated 18-point category of ELA 2 in geometry. Now we shift to ELA 2 and Algebra 1. In any case where you're using Algebra 1, integrated Math 1 can also substitute for that. And then those 12th grade transfer students are exempt from retaking exams prior to using the alternative demonstrations. And then same thing for the seals, nothing new here. They still must earn 2 seals and one of them must be state defined. They must get a B or higher. They can get a B or higher in American history and American government, or an advanced science or technology course that they took in a previous school, in a previous state. So if they transfer in and they have that credit and you're awarding them that credit that is, equal to the credit that a student would be able to use toward those seals here in Ohio, then they absolutely can use that toward earning that seal. So Travis, do you want to touch on graduation plans a little bit?
Yes, as referenced at the beginning, graduation plans are now a requirement for students to have. Every student in high school is required that there's a graduation plan set up for them starting their 9th grade year. Then it's looked at with the school staff member, and their parent or guardian needs to be invited to walk through that graduation plan for that student. With that is we wanted to incorporate it throughout the presentation. We have 3 students here, Dante, Eli, and Michelle. You'll notice that they all have different paths, and we'll refer to those paths at the end of the presentation. But we wanted to show that not every student, all students past the graduation, then post-graduation are different. And it's important to identify their interests and skill sets at the start. So you see Dante wants to go to an in-state university and study mechanical engineering. So how can he be prepared in his high school journey to prepare him for that post-high school? Same with Eli. Eli's interested in the medical field. So it's identified for him to earn the 12-point industry recognized credential in STNA. So when he's after high school graduation, he's ready to start his career in the medical field. Then lastly, Michelle has had an interest in joining the Air Force. So how can we work and get Michelle started in her journey in the Air Force post high school? So you'll see Dante, Eli, and Michelle's different sections of the graduation plan referenced on different slides throughout the presentation, just to make note that through their journey, they're able to earn competency, alternative pathways, or just earn competency through Algebra 1 and English 2, but also by how they can earn different seals as well too. So like Michelle was able to earn military readiness seal. Eli is going to be able to earn the industry recognized credential seal. Dante, he's got seals that he's able to meet as well too, like the science seal. So just make note of that throughout the presentation. When you see charts like this come up on slides, then certain seals added, that's to reference the student's pathway, then also how they earn that seal. The next slide, Graham, I believe we'll be discussing the current graduation plans, or not plans, but pathways this year. So our students in the class of 2023, there's 2 different options that they have to graduate. Every student at minimum this year has to earn 20 credits and receive instruction in economics and financial literacy. That's for class 2022, and that same right now is for class 2023 and beyond. We do know that there's some new information regarding financial literacy. We're working on putting out information regarding that. We're not going to address that If you have questions, Graham and I can maybe touch on that, but this presentation does not speak to the new financial literacy requirements that start, I believe, in the class of 2026. So class of 2022 and 2023 and beyond, these are the course requirements for them right now. If your district requires them to earn more than 20 credits, they would then be required to earn what your district requires. But the two options on the left, you'll see the 18 points across 7 state exams. That's the most popular one that students are able to access. They're able to also use the industry recognized credential, then the work readiness. So earn 12 points in a single career pathway, then also earn the required score on the work keys score, or they're able to earn college and career readiness remediation free score on ACT or SAT. We'll reference those scores that are required for remediation free on a couple slides coming up throughout the presentation. But those scores are set during that student's junior year. Option 1, students only have to meet one of those 3 pathways. So the 18 points, the industry recognized credential, and the work key score, or ACT or SAT. They do not need to meet each one, just required to meet one. Option 2 would be students are able to use graduation requirements for the class of 2023 and beyond. So this is the score of 684 on Algebra 1 or English 2. If they're unable to meet that required score on either or both of those tests, they need to receive remediation and test again. On their second attempt at either test, if they're unable to meet that required score, they would then be able to open up one of the 4 alternative pathways to demonstrate competency, which we're going to go in depth and discuss each one coming about. Also, after they meet competency, they're also required to demonstrate readiness. So demonstrating readiness means earning 2 seals. One of those seals must be a state-defined seal. Students are able to earn 2 state-defined seals. They're able to earn 1 state-defined and 1 locally defined seal, but they're unable to only meet 2 locally defined seals. One of those have to be state-defined. So these are the 2 options students have this year to meet the class of 2022 graduation requirements. Moving forward, the rest of the conversation will be solely focused on the class of 2023 and beyond, our new graduation requirements that begin next year to graduate. Unlike the class of 2023, where there's 3 options, students must meet all 3 areas that are listed on this page. So the first one is course requirements. So those are those credit requirements that your local school district has at minimum 20 credits, as well as the economics and financial literacy. The second one is that demonstration of competency that we're going to go in depth about, then also demonstrate readiness. So if anything to take away from this slide is students must meet all 3 of these areas to meet the class of 2023 and beyond graduation requirements. All right, and as mentioned, here's the chart. This stays the same with class of 2022, as well as then transfers over to class of 2023. But here's an outline of the state minimums for each subject and course that students are required to meet graduation. As noted again, your school district may require students to meet more than what is listed on this page. This is only to reference what the minimum requirement from the state level is for those students. Then I'm going to kick it over to Graham, and Graham's going to go in depth regarding demonstration of competency and what the 4 alternative pathways are.
Yeah, so this is kind of point number 2 of graduation these days. So you've got your credits that Travis just mentioned, you've got competency here, and then Travis is going to go in on our seals here in a couple minutes. So competency for most students will be represented by scores on their Ohio State tests. So they'll have a math and English language arts test. It'll be Algebra 1 or Integrated Math 1 and English Language Arts 2. And the required score on those assessments is 684. As we mentioned, the alternate assessment would also be an option for students to demonstrate competency. That's a score that we're still working to determine, but that will be an option for students as well. So students will attempt to demonstrate competency on Ohio State tests. Even if students are not scoring a 684, they'll still need to retake those tests. So those students will receive remediation. And we do not have a statewide definition for exactly what remediation means. It will depend school by school, student by student. But the way that we've kind of talked about it is, individualized attention that's specific to that student's needs and specific to their areas of weakness in that subject. So, if a student, looked at their Algebra 1 results and they really struggled in one unit, it probably doesn't make sense for them to look at the entirety of Algebra 1 as they're going through remediation. You'd want to target their remediation specific to where they struggled on that end of course assessment. So that's, kind of a key there. Once they receive remediation, then they'll need to retake that assessment. If they still do not score competent on that assessment, they still can continue to retake it throughout their high school experience, but they'll, have access to one of these alternative demonstrations of competency to be able to use that toward graduation. So there are 4 alternative demonstrations of competency. You'll remember Travis saying earlier that the places that are highlighted yellow are places where changes have happened. Our ACT or SAT remediation free score, like I said earlier, is brand new, and we have significant changes to our career readiness competency alternatives. So I'll go through each of these in detail. Our brand new competency alternative is that ACT or SAT remediation free score. So they can use their ACT or SAT scores to demonstrate competency for the subject area that they did not meet the score on the end of course test. So it can be specific to English language arts or math. They do not have to get both scores. That is not a requirement. And these scores are the current remediation free scores. These scores do change every once in a while, but if they're set in a student's, once they are set in a student's junior year, those scores would not change for that student. So if the score for some reason goes up in a student's senior year and they're no longer remediation free and they're freaking out, oh my gosh, I have to retake this exam, the answer is that's not true. Once it's happens for them in their junior year and they're remediation free, they're good to go. Military enlistment. This competency alternative is fairly simple. Simply provide evidence of enlistment in the military. So that will often, for almost every student involved, taking the ASVAB test. The ASVAB is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And the ASVAB not only is a great test to show readiness for the military, but it's also an awesome tool to identify career interests for a student, because there are, just as many careers inside the military as there are outside the military. This is a tool that the military uses to, hone students in on what they might want to do while they're enlisted. It can be a great tool for students that may not even think that they want to enlist, but they can get some awesome career services related to that. Students provide evidence by filling out the DD Form 4. It's a contract that shows early enlistment. Often to fully enlist in the military and ship out for boot camp, students do need to have a high school diploma, but this is an option for students to, show that they intend to enlist upon graduation. They've signed the form, and then, they're able to graduate based on that and then move forward from there and enlist. You'll notice there's a couple places, and it showed up on the previous screen as well, these seals. These seals mean that the students, by demonstrating this, are also demonstrating what's necessary to earn a seal. So if a student uses one of these alternative demonstrations of competency, they also inherently earn a state-defined seal for that demonstration, which is really helpful for that student because, those seals are also required for graduation. So just a nice point there that, you can double dip. Students can double dip there. They can use one demonstration. College credit plus. Oh, and I did want to note, sorry, Michelle earlier. Michelle is a student that is, a high flyer. She didn't even think of that, but she is a great student. She probably won't need this alternative demonstration of competency, but when she filled out her graduation plan, she planned for an alternative. As you're going through and developing your graduation planning processes, or perfecting those in your districts or working with districts to perfect those, I strongly recommend include a competency alternative for every student in their graduation plan. Even if you think they're going to score 750 on their end of course tests, include that, because the worst case scenario is that student does some exploration around a career path that's going to make sense for them, whether it's the military, whether it's college, whether it's one of our career focused competency alternatives. That can be really, really helpful for students. And College Credit Plus as a competency alternative. Students demonstrate this by earning College Credit Plus credit specific to the subject area that they didn't pass. So it doesn't have to be both. It's like the ACT or the SAT, where it's specific to the subject area that the student didn't remedial math or English course, and it does specifically need to be through the College Credit Plus program. Now we have our career readiness competency alternative. And the requirement here is that you'll see two different lists, foundational and supporting demonstrations. Every student has to do two things that you see on the screen here, and at least one of those demonstrations has to be foundational. So every student that's doing this competency alternative will have to either earn a cumulative score of proficient or higher on 3 or more web exams, earn 12 points of approved industry credentials, earn a state issued license in a vocation that requires an examination, or complete a pre-apprenticeship or an apprenticeship program. Every student will have to do one of those. They can pair that with another foundational demonstration, or they can pair it with a supporting demonstration. And one note that I'll make here is that you'll see some seals showing up again, the industry credential seal and the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness seal. So if a student uses their foundational and supporting demonstrations of earning 12 points of credentials and earning the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness seal, you'll find that they already earned 2 state-defined seals right there, and they have met the requirements for competency and readiness for graduation, which is really helpful for those students. What you see in blue here is the specific path that one of our students that you saw earlier took. His name's Eli. Eli is interested in going into healthcare after he graduates, but he's not sure he wants to go right to college. He wants to explore and get some work experience. So Eli's going to earn 12 points of credentials. Eli's going to earn his STNA, which is a 12-point credential right there. Shows evidence of readiness for, a job, upon graduation. And he's pairing that with the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness seal. So Eli right there has earned his credential. He's earned his readiness seal. He's got 2 seals. So that's a really great opportunity for Eli. And Eli, you'll find as we go to the end, did not end up scoring competent. So he needed these competency alternatives. And he started working toward them early in his high school career, which really helped him to be able to access a pathway to graduation. So we're going to stop here and just try to take some questions. I have not seen anything come through in the chat. I haven't seen anybody unmute, but I want to take a moment and see if anybody has any questions before we move on to seals. Charlene is asking, where can we get more information about web exams? Yes, absolutely, Charlene. I would reach out to our folks in the Office of Career Technical Education, or, depending on who your career technical provider is, that would be a great team to look at there. Web exams are the exams that are directly tied to capital C, capital T, career technical education. So a student that's participating in a career tech pathway. That would be the best option there. And web exams, there was a little confusion a couple of years back around those exams and whether or not they do allow for students to have accommodations on them. And the answer is absolutely yes. Any accommodation that a student gets on an end of course test or on any other assessment, they can absolutely use on the web exam. Thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate that. And Lenice, you are leading us directly into the next portion of this presentation. Lenice asks, is there a list of the seals? Travis is going to go through each seal in detail, so do not worry. We're going to get a ton of information on those. If there aren't any other questions, I will kick it over to Travis and let him jump into seals.
Yes, great transition there, question, Lenice. We appreciate that. So the rest of the presentation, we'll be talking about the seals that students are required and options they had to demonstrate readiness. The 4 bullet points here are the main areas regarding readiness. There are 12 total seals that students have the ability to earn. Students are required to earn at least 2 seals. They can earn more than 2 seals, but the minimum required is 2 seals, and one of those must be state defined. There are 9 state defined seals, 3 locally defined seals, and also note at the bottom, seals must be attached or affixed to a diploma and noted on their transcript. That is a requirement that every student every seal that a student earns is on their diploma and transcript upon graduation. The rest of it, the next slide will show you all 9 state-defined seals. 4 of those of which that we've already mentioned, of the military enlistment, the industry recognized higher means job, and the college ready seal. Those are ones that when Graham walked through competency, that students are able to earn by meeting competency, but they also earn that seal as well too. So when Graham used the term double dip, it is great if students are using the alternative pathway to demonstrate competency. A lot of these seals align to those demonstrations. So students can meet 2 of those graduation requirements just by going through one of those pathways. But the 9 that we show here, these are our state-defined seals. Students must at least earn 1 of these. And we're going to walk through the different ways that students have to earn each one. The first one aligns right with our military enlistment. Students who enlist, who submit that form into an armed service branch or military, are able to earn the military enlistment seal. So students enlisting in the military are able to earn that seal. Also, students are able to earn the seal by participating in an improved JROTC program. The department has a great website that has a interactive map throughout the state that shows where different JROTC programs are located. You can find which ones are located close to your school district, but also it identifies what branch of military that program is. We can send the PDF form of this presentation to you guys. Send it to Stephen. Stephen may be able to send it out. But there's an interactive link on this page. They just click there and it'll take you to that link on our website. But definitely, if you have a student who's interested in the military or is enrolling into the military, make sure that they submit their form. They can earn the seal, earn competency. But also, if you have a student who's interested in the JRTC program, this is good to note that they're able to earn the seal by joining that program. The next seal to which that we have is the industry recognized credential seal. We've already mentioned some of the requirements from House Bill 110. Graham went in depth on the career readiness demonstration, but students that meet one of these 3 requirements, again, they only have to meet one of these requirements for these seals, earning 12 points industry recognized credential or a bundle of credentials in one single career pathway. So please note the importance of that. If students are bundling credentials together, that they meet the 12-point requirement, those credentials must be in one single career field for them to earn that. Also, again, where it's highlighted, the new option from House Bill 110 is earning a state issued license in practice that requires an examination. That would also meet that foundational option for career readiness. At the bottom there, this is our student Eli, again, who identified medical field, wanted to go into ST&A. He met the requirements to earn his ST&A industry recognized credential seal for graduation. And that prepares him for that medical field post high school. So definitely industry recognized credential is a huge seal, an important seal, not only for graduation, but also preparing that student post high school graduation. Next seal, Graham. All right. Sorry, I was getting a call on Teams real quick. Sorry, got distracted. Ohio means job readiness seal. This is another one that aligns to that career readiness competency pathway, but students are able to earn this. There's 3 numbers here to take out of this slide. The first one I want to talk about is 15. 15 represents the professional skills that students need to demonstrate to earn a higher means job readiness seal. You're wondering, how do they demonstrate this? What are those 15? Who monitors that? The next number is 3. Students must have 3 mentors that validate those 15 skill sets. And those 15 skill sets can be demonstrated amongst 2 different environments. So there's 3 total environments students are able to demonstrate those 15 skills. Those 3 environments are community, work, and school. At minimum, students must demonstrate those 15 skill sets in 2 of those. They don't have to demonstrate 15 skill sets in community and work. It can be across all 3, but students at minimum have to demonstrate at least in 2 different environments and be validated of those 15 skills by 3 different mentors. Again, we're going to reference Eli at the bottom here. He earned the Hire Me the Job Readiness Seal. His mentors were one from work, one from community, and one from school. So he was able to get one from all three. But again, students are only required to have a minimum of 2. But this is, again, to prepare students post-high school readiness, to demonstrate these 15 skill sets. So if it's leadership or responsibility or whatever it means, that or business partners that we reach out to help identify what those 15 skill sets are. Again, this is just to prepare students post-high school for the workforce. The next slide that Graham referenced, we already talked about this a couple times, so I won't spend too much time, but it's that career readiness seal that students have. Students that earn these required scores, please note again that these do change, but they are locked in during students' junior year. Student that meets these scores on English language arts and math, then will also earn the college ready seal for graduation. All right, we can move on to the next one. All right, moving forward will be new seals that we haven't dove too much or if at all into yet. The first one, technology seal. There's 3 different options students have. Notice the highlights here. The first one is a proficient score, which equates to a 2 on an AP or IB test in technology. The second option is earning a B or higher on an improved college credit plus course for technology. And the last one is completing a course that meets guidelines set by Ohio Department of Education. You can find those guidelines. There is a 56-page document that we have put together that will outline. There's a page, I think it's page 20 on the document, that talks about the technology seal that would go into what those guidelines are as well. I also want to take time to talk about right now is our office is working on new graduation documents that we're going to hopefully publish. We're finalizing them, updating them right now. But as I referenced it, a 56-page document is quite a lot, and it's maybe not as user-friendly as we'd all hope. But we're working on making, still going to have the content, still going to update the information, but we're going to be able to make these pages individualized, that if you're looking for the technology seal, you're just going to be able to pull that out and just look at the technology seal instead of having to scroll down to page 20. So just wanted to make note, we're working as the office to publish these soon, but you can find, if you're looking for what the guidance that is set by the Ohio Department of Education for technology seal, you can currently find that in our 2023 and beyond graduation information. That is the long 56-page document. All right, next. Citizenship seal. You can see again that the yellow highlights that Graham referenced earlier that came through with House Bill 110. But there are, as you can see, more options here for students to earn the citizenship seal. Students are only required to earn meet one of these options for graduation, or excuse me, to earn the citizenship seal. So the first one is a score of proficient or higher on American history and American government exam. Next one is a B or higher in both American history and American government on the course grade. Again, a proficient 2 or higher on AP or IB U.S. history test, a B or higher in American history and American government college credit plus course. Then the last highlight is for students who are taking the alternative assessment for students with most cognitive disability. We're looking at the qualifying score for that. Once that is set, we'll be sure to communicate that out. But there isn't that option for students who meet that qualifying score to earn the citizenship seal as well. We may receive a question after this. We're communicated out as well too when we send out updated options. But we've received a lot of questions regarding if students are able to mix and match these options here. We're looking to finalize that. Once we do, we'll be sure to update that in the document. But right now we're encouraging to just meet if you're using the testing option, students test in a 3 or higher in American history and American government. If they're using the course grade, to use the B or higher in American history and American government. And if we are able to change that, we'll be sure to communicate that out widely through different platforms. But right now, we're going to go with what is on this slide. The next one will be the science seal, which aligns a lot with the citizenship seal. Again, 3 or higher on the state biology test, a B or higher in advanced science course that Graham went into depth earlier. We're looking for an advanced course a lot of times, 11th and 12th grade. science courses that are beyond a physical science or biology course. Second one is, again, that 2 or higher on an AP or IB test, B or higher in college credit plus course, and again, that qualifying score on the alternative assessment for students with the most cognitive disabilities. Those are the requirements. Students have, again, only need to meet one to meet those, the requirements for the science seal. At the bottom, this is our student Dante, who's looking, again, to go into mechanical engineering. Science is a strong suit for him. So on his path towards graduation, he was able to meet the science requirement on his end of course test in biology to earn that science seal as well.
Hey, Travis, quick question.
Yeah.
How would, and this is just a question I get often about districts have students that transfer in from another state and don't take the Ohio, let's just say they don't take the Ohio biology exam. Are they allowed to use, how do they go about using like comparable courses, or what's the process for that?
Yes, and Graham, you feel free to jump in as well too. But at the beginning of the reference, if we were talking class of 2023 and beyond, one of the slides that Graham referenced was that students are able to use prior coursework to meet the science and citizenship. And some of our new documents that we're going to put out speaks to this. But if a student took let's just say a biology course at his prior school out of state, and that course aligns with the biology course in your school district, and that student met or B or higher in that student can transfer that in and earn the science seal through that.
Not biology, advanced science.
Sorry, yes,
Yeah.
Advanced biology for coursework, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a student, coming in from out of state, if you're awarding them advanced science credit for, say a physics course that they took in Arizona, they moved to Ohio, you're giving them advanced science credit for that course. Great. As long as you decide that that is equal to advanced science, that they've got a B or higher, go for it. They also have the option of taking the test. If that's not an option for a student, if they don't have that B or higher, and you'd like to give them the biology test, you absolutely can. It's not necessarily required for that student, but they'll have another option as to how to earn that seal.
Thank you for qualifying.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for asking, Stephen. All right, the next seal that we have, biliteracy. Students to earn the biliteracy seal must demonstrate proficiency in both English and high levels of proficiency in at least one other world language. The next slide will show the requirements that students have to demonstrate English and proficiency in another language. Graham, if you can move it to the next slide. All right. Obviously, a lot of words on this slide. We'll send this presentation out to everybody afterwards. I'm not going to read through each one, but on the left, you can see that there's 4 options students have to demonstrate proficiency in English. Students only need to meet one of those 4 options to demonstrate proficiency in English. On the right, you'll see 6 different options students have to meet proficiency in another foreign language. Students who meet proficiency in English meet proficiency in foreign language, pair that together, then equates to the biliteracy seal. Again, this information is on our website. It's on that 56-page document where we're looking to update it. But this is all current requirements that students have. So students who meet one of the requirements for English, one of the requirements for foreign language will then earn the biliteracy seal. Our last seal, honors diploma. Pretty simple here. Students who earn the requirements for one of the 6 honors diplomas listed here would then also earn honors diploma. So basically, the requirement is for a student who earns an honors diploma, earns an honors diploma seal for graduation, and as well too. At the link here, also on the website, you can we have a nice chart that outlines all the requirements for each seal, or excuse me, each honors diploma, what the requirements are, and provides additional information what students need to do to earn the honors diploma. Next, we're going to go in and talk about the 3 locally defined seals that are outlined. 3 seals that we have on the next slide are the Fine and Performing Arts seals, Community Service seal, and State Engagement seal. School districts are required to at least offer one of these seals to students. They're not required to earn all three, but at minimum, they're required to earn one. These are locally defined seals. So these seals are determined at the local school district. So what you see next to each one in a sentence or two is the guidance that the state is providing school districts. So it's important that school districts come up with their own requirements for the community service, the student engagement, and the fine and performing arts. As Graham alluded to earlier, it is also a requirement for school districts to now have set in place guidance for students that transfer in to be able to give them a prorated amount of whatever credit or work that they have already done previously that aligns with one of these three options. Students have the ability to earn a locally defined seal. It is not a requirement like it is a state defined seal. Again, I just want to reference that students earning 2 locally defined seals only does not meet the readiness requirement for seals. They have to pair it with 1 state defined seal. Lastly, to finish up, we want to show our 3 students again, Dante, Eli, and Michelle. The biggest thing that we want to take away from this page, and I won't get in depth to walk through every pathway that they have, but you can notice each one had a different pathway towards graduation. And it was important that they were identified what their interests and what they wanted to go post high school from an early start. We know what a student may want to do in 9th grade may change by 11th grade, but they had a plan. They had a reason to take those courses. And they also learned if a student wants to say Dante, for instance, wants to go into mechanical engineering, then he learns mechanical engineering, may not what he wants to do in 11th grade. He had an answer. He learned that wasn't maybe the right fit for him, which is completely fine. The biggest thing is they're learning, they're understanding what options that they have for them. And also there's not one pathway for each student. They all have their own journeys, their own pathways during high school, then also post high school as well too. And our biggest thing is, Graham and I want to mention here is the importance of making these individualized and best suited for what the strengths and opportunity that student has. Lastly, we want to mention a couple of different kind of housekeeping things. I know Renee presents in 6 minutes, so we want to be mindful of her time as well as if there's any questions at the end. But there's a couple of different things at the end regarding a new FAFSA website that we have. Also, excuse me, it skips one, but there are links referenced on here. I know Steven's done a great job putting links in the chat as well too. But we have a new FAFSA website. It's for you. Feel free to jump on that. It has a lot of good marketing material for schools and students to learn about FAFSA as well. The last one that Graham had up, we're really working on being intentional with communicating our graduation requirements and answering questions and providing different platforms that you guys can reach Graham and I. The first one is our graduation office hours. These are hosted bi-weekly on Wednesdays and Fridays. Our Wednesday session is from 3:30 to 4:30, and our Friday sessions are in the mornings from 9:30 to 10:30. So how this works, let's just say there's a graduation open office hours this afternoon from 3:30 to 4:30. Our next one wouldn't be until 2 weeks, and that one will be hosted on Friday, December 3rd from 9:30 to 2:30. So they're bi-weekly and they alternate between days and times. The second one is grad inbox. If you have questions regarding graduation, please reach out to the grad inbox. Graham and I do a good job of monitoring that. We meet a couple of times a week just to focus on responding to those. But between those sessions that we look at and we respond on a pretty much daily basis on that. So we're very intentional of responding in a timely manner. Lastly, one of the biggest ways that we're going to communicate our new documents and any updates is through our new school counselor updates. You don't have to be a school counselor to receive these, but a lot of our communication from our office and information is sent through this way. Click on the links on here when the PDF is sent out, but you can also just go to higher department or website. At the top, you'll see a red envelope. Click on that. If you've already are registered, just put in your email and your information to sign in. If you haven't registered yet, to sign up through your email password. But once you're in there, you'll see a lot of different subjects that you can sign up to sign up for this one. It is literally just titled School Counselor Updates. Click on that, hit submit, and you'll start receiving those when those are sent out. That is all we have today for our presentation. again, we're going to open up for questions, but we appreciate you guys taking the time out of this afternoon to listen to Graham and I. So please feel free to unmute. And if you guys have any questions that you guys want to discuss with Graham and I, we'll use this time to do so.
And if you guys, a lot of information there. I appreciate Travis and Graham, your time, especially under the weather, coming and helping our region get this message out. Graham and Travis are also very responsive. So if you ever have questions, you can get a hold of them. You will get an answer or pointed in the right direction very quickly. So from an SST perspective, I do appreciate you guys always being so responsive and timely with that information, because oftentimes it's urgent within the districts when we get those questions.
Thank you, Stephen.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. Lanice just came off mute. I don't know if she has a question.
I do, and it may be, it's very basic, I know, but I'm gonna ask anyway. So for the 2023 and beyond options for graduation, the student must have the credits. I'm just trying to get in a grad because I'm fairly new with working in high school, so I'm just trying to learn everything. So they have to earn credits, they have to show competency either with the industry recognized credential or the Ohio Means Jobs, and they have to show readiness as well. And they have to show readiness either with 3 seals. So they have to do all of these things, even students with disabilities.
So just a few clarifications.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, all 3 things are required. You know, yes, you do need to do all 3 things. You need to have your credits, demonstrate competency, and demonstrate readiness.
Okay.
Competency for most students will not involve any of these alternatives. Many students will score a 684 on their end of course tests, but you know, students with disabilities may not have as high of a rate of scoring. So at that point, they would need to receive remediation and retake that assessment,
Right.
and then do one of these 4 competency. So yes, that absolutely is true. And then, you know, this career readiness competency alternative is obviously the most complicated. They need to have at least 1 foundational demonstration, and they can either pair that with another foundational demonstration or a supporting demonstration. So imagine a student in a career tech pathway, they get their cumulative score of proficient or higher on 3 or more web exams, and they also earn 12 points of credentials. They've got 2 foundational demonstrations, they're good to go. Our friend Eli earned 12 points of credentials and paired that with the readiness seal. He's good to go. But you couldn't do 250 hours of work-based learning and the readiness seal there. That would not work because it's 2 supporting, you don't.
Right.
And then the last note that I'll make about seals is you mentioned 3 seals. It's actually 2. There's 2 seals that are required for students. At least 1 has to be state defined.
Okay. And then the last thing that I was a little confused about was the 15 professional, I'm trying to identify professional skills. Are they listed somewhere?
Yep, there's a document that's on our website. If you just search the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal or Ohio Means Jobs on our website, you'll find that.
Okay.
It's also in a bunch of the information that Stephen was linking. You'll be able to find it there.
So they have to just get a minimum of 2 seals. It's just that in your example, the students earn 3.
Yep.
Okay.
Students can earn all 12 seals theoretically.
Oh, they can. Okay. Okay. That was it. Thank you.
And never be afraid to ask the question, Lenise. We appreciate it. And we would 10 times out of 10 rather you make sure you've got what you need walking out of here. Okay, I think that's our time. So thank you all. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk through this stuff. Feel free to reach out to us if you need anything else.
All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
All right. Now I'm going to turn it over to Renee Buchele. She is a vocational rehabilitation counselor with OOD. She's going to talk a little bit about making referrals, some of their processes and services that they offer, and how we can, as educators, integrate outside organizations to help service students with disabilities. So I'll turn it over to Renee. She's going to talk for about a half an hour, and then we'll have a few minutes at the end for questions. So thank you, Renee, for being here. I appreciate it. It's all yours.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Just like Graham and Travis, there was supposed to be a duo. Unfortunately, my counterpart is sick, so bear with me. If you do have questions, I encourage you to put them in the chat, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. I'm just going to jump right into my presentation because I know that we are, that time is precious. So let me share my screen. Hopefully you'll be able to see my presentation here. Can everyone see that, or is it showing up?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. So again, I am from Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. What is OOD? So Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities is a fancy name that we kind of christened ourselves with because we are the Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation. So if you go to other states, they're not going to be called Opportunities for Kentuckians with Disabilities. It's going to be the Kentucky State Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation. So we just have a particular name. A lot of people call us BVR. So if you hear BVR or OOD, we are one and the same. We are a state agency, so we are funded at the state and federal level. So we receive funds and pay for those services with those state and federal tax dollars. Our mission is to empower Ohioans with disabilities through employment, disability determinations, and independence. And our goal is to connect individuals with disabilities to community and integrated employment. That's our main goal, is to help individuals seek employment in the community alongside peers who might not have disabilities. How to apply for services. So there's multiple ways you can apply for OOD services. You can go through our website, through oodworks.com. You can call your regional OOD office. Some offices cover more than just one county. So the Columbus office covers Delaware, Fairfield, and Franklin County. Sometimes school districts might overlap counties, so that gets a little confusing. But typically, the way students are referred are through their school's transition coordinator. If your school doesn't have a transition coordinator, we've had intervention specialists step into that role, or even guidance counselors, just somebody to help us connect with the school. I think a lot of the times, especially with our services, there can seem like a disconnect between the school and what services we're kind of offering. The transition coordinator or intervention specialist, whomever it is, plays a huge role for us in helping us build rapport and making sure that the guardian or parent and the student is staying in touch, is participating in services. It's so much more than just, you help them fill out the referral application form and that's it. You help us connect to IEP meetings and help us become part of the interdisciplinary team. So if you're on one of those interdisciplinary teams and you're in one of those big IEP meetings, you kind of help us pull up a seat to that meeting and have, our input in there, because some schools provide different services. Some schools have more resources and some schools, they don't. And so it's helpful for us to know where we need to step in and be part of those meetings. Typically, if we have a student that signs up through OOD Works, or their parent or, a service coordinator is calling the office to refer them, the first thing that I do, and most transition students, transition vocational rehabilitation counselors do, is we reach out to the school. We say, hey, we hear, John has a referral form. Is he a student that you've worked with, and can you help me connect him so I can, get him set up with services? So multiple different ways. My favorite is working with a transition coordinator. I'm assigned to particular schools. And so the student comes in, it goes to that particular counselor. So sometimes it can be confusing, but each school district typically has a couple of counselors that cover it. Who's eligible? We start with anybody who's aged 14 and older with a disability who voluntarily expresses interest in employment. So these services are voluntary. You don't have to participate. It makes it easier if the student wants to participate, that's for sure. Another requirement is disability must make it hard for them to prepare for, get, keep, advance in, or regain a job. And they must be able to benefit from services. And sometimes that last one can be confusing for folks because you're like, well, what does it look like? The way I look at it is that the supports that a student has on an IEP might often be similar to supports they would need or need to have on the job. So, they kind of look similar. Obviously, some of the supports for those schools with a lot of resources might not translate to what's in school or what's in the community, but, we try to make sure that, okay, we've identified these things that might be helpful, like rehabilitation technology, accommodations, those sorts of things. So again, if you are a transition coordinator or you've got an individual who's filled out that referral application, we receive that here at OOD. And then our next goal or next step is setting up an intake interview. That interview can consist of a number of things. Typically, we are trying to identify needs and areas of functional limitation. So we typically look at 7, which is communication, interpersonal skills, self-direction, work skills, work tolerance, self-care, and mobility. So we kind of look at all of those, identify certain things in there. We also discuss medical and diagnostic history. So we talk about what diagnoses do you have? Do you have medical documentation of those things? How long ago did those things happen? We're asking a lot of those types of questions. We also ask about employment history. Students typically don't have a ton of employment history, and we recognize that. But sometimes it's interesting to know, like, do you volunteer? Do you have a work study job that you have in school? Are you part of a program that, part of your work day, you're at a career center, or do you go out in the community with a group of classmates and work in places in the community? So we look at those because those are just as important. And then we ask them what their interests are in terms of employment goals. Like, do you have interests? Have you thought about what's out there? Have you had those discussions at home or in class? We also talk about, other services that are out there. A lot of behavioral health. Here in Columbus, we have Nationwide Children's Behavioral Health. We want to know, are they receiving supports in that way? Are they connected or receiving services through their county's Board of Developmental Disabilities? Do they have waiver services that could potentially help us down the road when we're looking at employment in the community? And then also we collect, release of information and consent. So if you have, typically there's going to be one for the school. We're going to talk about that. We're going to, if there's hospitals like your children's hospital or your primary care physician who's given you a diagnosis, or if you've had a major health issue, we want to collect that information and use that to build a case for eligibility.
Hey Renee, sorry to interrupt. There's a question. Can an intervention specialist fill out a referral, or does it have to be parents?
So ideally, we would like that form to be filled out because it does need to eventually be signed. Now, the intervention specialist can help set up a meeting. You can fill out the information you do know on the form. And that might be contact information, names, guardian information, disability, those types of things. I would never turn that down. I would never turn that away because sometimes a lot of meetings I go into, I'm only getting the person's first name and initial, like they're like John S for John Smith. I might not even know anything else other than that. So the more information that you can give the vocational rehabilitation counselor you're working with prior to the meeting is really helpful. Now you have to be careful because you don't want to give, like IEP, ETR, medical information because we haven't talked about release of information. But if you've talked to the parent and they're like, yes, please help us get connected, you type up as much information as you can, like, again, name, phone number, parent or guardian's name, disability, and then I can always call and say, hey, I heard you were wanting to sign up for services. Here's the form. So I'm not, like I said, we're never going to turn down that form so long as you fill out what's on there and send that over. It's just not the application until everyone has signed it. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mariah. Okay. So the next step is the eligibility determination. So anyone can apply for services. You can refer anybody that you feel meets those criteria. However, we have to determine them eligible. So we look at those areas of limitation and we review all of that. I like to tell kids, when I'm in meetings with them, that like I kind of look at it like a research project. Like I'm getting your ETR and your IEP, or I'm getting your Fed form, or your individualized service plan, or medical records, or psych evals, whatever. I'm reading through all of those. I'm pulling everything out that I can to show the agency that like this is how this student would benefit. And so very rarely with a student with an IEP, and I tell them in the meeting, very rarely do I have a problem making a student eligible that has an IEP, because again, the reasons that school is sometimes difficult, those reasons may also pop up in the workplace. And so we identify those supports, accommodations, needs. Sometimes it's, we have trouble with math, we have trouble with counting coins, like a lot of that kind of stuff. We outline on the eligibility, just saying this is why this individual needs support. So we put together that eligibility determination, submit it, and then after that's done, the next step is setting up a plan. So this is where we kind of put together employment goal, the services we want to participate in, the services we might benefit from, and where we also talk about who we're going to work with. So it's kind of like a flexible plan. Nothing is permanently set in stone when it comes to our plans. And I like to tell them that it's kind of a fluid document. It's like a living document. So we might put a plan into motion today, and then a week from now we might go, oh, hey, there's this service that I think your student might be interested in participating in. Can we meet together with the student, the representative, maybe update the plan, and then go from there. So it can change quite a bit. When I put my plans together, I think of all the services that the student might participate in so that we don't have to have those additional meetings. But sometimes things pop up and new services or new opportunities arise. So we kind of sit down and we talk about employment goal. We don't know what our employment goal is. Sometimes we might think of a vocational evaluation, but sometimes students do know what they want to do. And that's a field that has a bright outlook, that matches their skills, their abilities, and their strengths. And then we kind of put planned services in their projected time frame. So, next summer we might participate in something, or in the next month or two, we might participate in something. Things like high school graduation and receiving your high school diploma. That's a service I put on the plan because I want to hold the student accountable for moving towards graduation. Obviously, I can't force them to go to class, and I can't force them to go after their high school diploma, but I put it on there because I want them to know that it's important. It also makes employment easier and finding a job, since high school diploma tends to be that minimum requirement. We also go over community provider selection. So our agency works with OOD approved providers in the community, and we allow our participants to select that provider. It's not a pick this one and that's it. It's informed choice. Like I have 6 providers that can provide this service. However, I think these 3 would be the best, either due to, proximity or, participants they've helped me serve in the past, and their availability. So, knowing those things, I kind of give the participant and their representative that's helping them, make those choices and put that plan together. So after we put a plan together, these are some of the services that you might find on your student's plan. The first one is kind of the one where most transition coordinators, intervention specialists are trying to get their students to participate in, and that's our summer youth work experience. It's like a 5-week internship where they work in a small group with a job coach. It's typically 5 days a week, and it's about 4 hours a day. Students are paid for their time. They're getting typically around $10 an hour. So that's a pretty big incentive when you're telling a student like, hey, you'll work over the summer and make almost $1,000. That light bulb goes off and they get really pumped because they realize that they can make some money. Due to COVID, there might be some changes, but 5 weeks is typical. I think this past summer, we maybe had some 3-week ones, maybe some 4-week, or maybe it was 4 days a week for a longer shift. It's the only time a student would be set up with a job. Other times we're, looking at jobs in the community, but we have a set list that comes out, end of January, February-ish from all the providers. And then we go in and offer those site options to students for them to select from. If you have a student that you want to refer for this summer youth work experience, it's best to refer them in the beginning of the school year. So September, October, November, as the site selection for, summer youth is February. So we want to make sure that we have enough time to meet with them, make them eligible, get them into a plan so that we can then refer them when that list gets released. The next thing is career exploration. This service is traditionally provided closer to graduation, where the student can sit down and discuss career options and career ideas with professionals in that field. So provider would help them make those connections, talk to those professionals. That would be through a chosen provider, and they would help them kind of coordinate those meetings. Job development, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with that, but that's interview practice, preparing resumes, filling out mock applications, learning how to fill out an application, assisting with filling out actual job applications for jobs in the community. They also help with attending interviews or getting, the provider can help them drive to the interview and even sit in the interview with them to help advocate. And then, if that student is offered a job, and takes that job coaching is naturally what comes next. And that is, one-on-one on-site coaching for the student when they begin working. The intention of that service is to fade away so that the student is working independently in the community. That is not a long-term service that OOD provides. If you do have a student who has DD services and they are like a supported employment candidate, and they do need those longer-term coaching and retention services, we have helped bridge that with those supported employment services. Those students would have to have a waiver that has funds that can support that. And those are typically conversations we have long before we even get to the point of the job coach fading away. Those are typically in the plan development component. We also help with transportation. In a sense, transportation is provided for summer youth, assessments, trainings. We also help students with bus passes until they receive their first paycheck. So that might be through CODA or CODA Mainstream. And then it's important that the student, I always say this, it's important that the student have reliable and sustainable transportation set up outside of OOD services when they're looking for a job. So we don't want them to rely on us, if that makes sense. Okay. Then we have some transition specific services. And I believe you guys, you have a flyer for this in the Google, that link that Steven sent. And these are pre-employment transition services. So these are services that are available to students with an open case and students that are potentially eligible. So this is kind of where it gets a little confusing even for OOD staff. A potentially eligible student is someone who has an IEP or an ETR, a 504, or a Social Security award letter, or they have services through their county board of DD, or medical forms that identify a qualifying diagnosis. So it could be a grand scheme of things, that you can refer them for. There are 5 pre-ET services: job exploration counseling, work-based learning, workplace readiness training, instruction, self-advocacy, and counseling on post-secondary options. So there's 5 of those there. Those are about 8 hours total of service. So that might be like, 45 minutes here one week, an hour the next week. So it can be spread out. And typically a lot of providers have like a way they like to go through them, but you can refer the student for any of those at any time. So there's no time frame on those like there is for the summer youth. Students can be referred for any number of those services. You can do all 5. You can do 3 of them. It just depends. I typically, as a counselor, wait for that counseling on post-secondary till closer to graduation. That's where they discuss FAFSA and scholarships and those types of things. So I kind of put that one off just a little bit. These services are a great way, especially the job exploration, the work-based learning, and the workplace readiness, to introduce students to the world of work. And especially for students who have no previous experience, or you feel as their transition coordinator or intervention specialist that they just need a little boost or some additional support before they start working, even if it's just the summer youth. If you want to do those before they participate in the summer youth, I think that's great. It kind of gets those gears going about it. So the flyer has those on there with the descriptions, so you can see the description of each service. Each provider typically has the same curriculum for each of those services, and they are OOD approved. Okay. The next slide discusses how OOD can assist with post-secondary. I will be honest with you, this is not a slide that I am an expert on because the post-secondary policy changes regularly, especially now that school, at least here in Central Ohio, Columbus City school students can attend Columbus State for free for the first 3 years. So obviously that changes the way we provide services. We do at all of the state and community colleges. So if you're in Northwest Ohio, like University of Toledo, or if you're in Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati. Here in Columbus, we have Central Ohio Technical College, OSU, and Columbus State are all schools that we have a college to careers counselor at. So, somebody on campus kind of embedded there. But we've helped with things like career exploration and counseling, tuition assistance for those who qualify, which is based on the individual's FAFSA, and then things like assistive and rehabilitation technology. So maybe the school's Office of Disability Services doesn't offer the type of accommodations that the student needs to be successful in class. So that's kind of where we step in and can potentially fill the gap and make a justification for why a particular device is needed or a particular accommodation in that class is needed. We've helped with internships, helping students find internships for their college requirements, or finding them employment while they're in school. There are some students that do find that they do need to work while they're in college, so helping them find that part-time job that works with their classes and their hours. So if you have questions about like college to careers or post-secondary college education, Kristen Garrett is the program administrator for that. So she'd be the best person to reach out to in terms of that. Like I said, I typically work with high school students. Not a large number of my students go to college. So I'm not completely ignorant, but I'm also not the best person to talk to about this. So give Kristen a holler if you need to. Let's see here. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. I think that's the most important. Obviously, I wanted to leave space for questions, concerns, anything like that. Thanks, Barbara.
I have a question for OOD, like to be involved in an IEP meeting. How long typically in advance do you guys need to know?
Typically, like it's nice to know at least a week or 2 weeks in advance. That way we can just make sure we can accommodate it on our schedule. A lot of the times, especially in the way virtually, it's a lot easier to meet those and adjust my schedule. So if I have an IEP that's at 7:20 in the morning, I just know that I need to start my day earlier so that, I can accommodate that. Every counselor does everything a little bit differently. I think that's what's important about you know, if you're working with a particular counselor in your school, is formulating that relationship. Because with my transition coordinators, I feel like I'm on the same team, right? We may work for different agencies and different organizations, but I feel generally that like they're looking out for me, like, hey, just want to let you know, I'm about to send you 7 or 8 IEP invitations. So they're going to be popping up on your calendar. And then that way I can make sure I'm there, and that I'm part of that meeting. So yeah, typically, you know, a week or 2 is the best. If it's an in-person one, we definitely would want to know sooner rather than later, because we have to allot for our transportation and get that approved, mostly because of all the COVID restrictions and things that have been put in place around the pandemic. But most counselors enjoy going to those IEP meetings. So if you can get them on the list, get their email in there so that it's routine for them to be invited, that's really helpful. And it helps the parents hear, like, see our names, see our faces more often, because I can't count the number of times I've had to reach out to a transition coordinator and say, hey, like, I tried calling this parent 6 times now, and I just don't know if they don't have my number saved, or they just think I'm some lady from the state. So helping us build that rapport is huge, especially since these students' cases, if you're referring like sophomores or juniors, their case is going to be open for at least 3 or 4 or 5 years. You know, if they're going off to college, even longer. So the better rapport I can build with the parent in the beginning is great. And that's where the intervention specialists and TCs really, really help us.
So thank you for, well, that's often a question we get. All right, we're at about 3:23. I don't know if anybody else has any questions for Renee. Renee, thank you very much for being here. Great information. You answered a lot of the questions that I often get from districts about OD, so you helped me better understand your processes and how to get that involved in transition planning for our students.
Awesome.
Just a couple logistic things real quick. I will put the survey or the evaluation and certificate link in the chat, if you could fill that out. Also, we have 2 more meetings scheduled this year for the Transition Network on February 23rd and April 27th. Those are both 2 o'clock to 3:30. If anybody that's on here has any suggestions about information related to transition planning, post-secondary transition that they want more information about, please email me and let me know, and we will try to integrate that material into the conversations to help make it, you know, more pertinent to what your needs are in the district. My email is in the chat box. Beyond that, it's pretty much all we have for today. Thank you very much for being here. And Renee, thank you very much for your time and your assistance today. You did a great job with things, making it easy to understand and connecting people with those resources and pathways to help students. So I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. And if you guys ever have questions, I know my email is in the presentation, so I might not be your dedicated counselor, but I can sure help answer any questions if you have them. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And I hope everybody has a good afternoon and a great Thanksgiving break. Make sure to take some time for yourselves and refresh before the 3 weeks before the holiday break. So have a good afternoon. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or suggestions for further network topics. Thank you.